India brands itself on the global stage as the mother of democracy, but on July 20th, the street reality suggested a different set of values. Thousands of students had gathered in the capital to protest the systemic leaking of the NEET medical exams, a scandal that had compromised the testing infrastructure for millions of prospective doctors. The crowd had one specific demand: the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. For nearly 3 weeks, the movement at Jantar Mantar had been defined by its nonviolence. Activist Sonam Wangchuk led the sit-in from a protest stage, maintaining an indefinite hunger strike. The movement's history of peaceful sit-ins makes the sudden shift to militarized suppression a stark departure from standard democratic practice. The night before the scheduled march, the security environment shifted. Under the cover of darkness, Delhi police removed all metal detectors and standard security checks from the Jantar Mantar site. In an area completely cordoned off and controlled by the police, protesters noticed the sudden arrival of a damaged van and a truck loaded with loose bricks and stones. Students on the ground suspected these items were being staged to frame the movement for a riot, even leaving notes on the vehicles identifying them as government plants. The coordination of these nighttime logistics, the removal of security, and the planting of debris suggests that the violence of the following day was a feature of the state's plan, rather than a failure of it. The operation began with a change in leadership. The Delhi Police Commissioner was removed and replaced by a special director from the Intelligence Bureau. At 6:30 a.m., security forces raided the camp, kidnapping the fasting Sonam Wangchuk and forcibly confining him at Safdarjung Hospital. With the movement's leadership removed, the physical perimeter was locked down. Authorities welded 10-foot-high, barbed wire barricades together and closed 5 major metro stations to box the students in. The government then cut internet access to 150 distinct sites across central Delhi, effectively silencing communication from the city center. As the digital isolation expanded, thousands of protesters were left without a way to call for help or document the massive police buildup surrounding them. This combination of physical barriers and digital silence was designed to blind the outside world to the strike that followed. At Parliament Street, riot police began firing tear gas directly into the marchers, expending over 25 shells in a single hour. The assault was indiscriminate. Baton charges were launched against unarmed civilians and sitting protesters who offered no physical resistance. Many officers operated as a faceless mob. They removed their name tags, masked their faces with handkerchiefs, and covered the license plates of their vehicles. Plainclothesmen working with the police targeted independent ground journalists and YouTubers, physically attacking them to destroy the only cameras left in the area. By hiding their identities and targeting witnesses, these forces abandoned law enforcement protocols and operated with the impunity of a militant hit squad. While the violence peaked on the streets, the government employed a final track: political theater. Protest spokespersons were held for hours under the guise of negotiations, only to be given a hollow 10-minute meeting with Health Minister J.P. Nadda. These negotiations kept organizers trapped inside a government office while the violent crackdown unfolded outside. The state's efforts failed to break the movement. By that evening, protesters had already returned to Jantar Mantar and rebuilt the stage the police had dismantled. The footage of the crackdown became a catalyst for national outrage, sparking solidarity protests from Lucknow and Ahmedabad to Mumbai and Bangalore. Despite the intimidation, the students maintained their focus on the core issue: a refusal to accept a compromised future for the country's youth. The crackdown successfully cleared the square for a few hours, but it appears to have provided the primary momentum for the national movement that followed. The use of communication blackouts and faceless enforcement has prompted many to compare the current administration to the colonial companies that once used similar tactics to suppress Indian dissent. The events of July 20th suggest that while brute force can occupy a street, it often fails to dismantle the ideas that brought people there in the first place.